welcome back. As we earlier said that today we're going to be shedding light over Builders of Egypt Forum. Recently, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli has confirmed that this forum, Builders of Egypt, is a great chance to reflect and present the unique experience or the unique Egyptian experience that is carried out by the state in the African continent. And of course, we're going to be talking about that in detail and the implications of that particular experience over the mega project that has been taken in the mega infrastructural projects, the housing units, the complete makeover of the informal settlements, and of course, the real estate department also, or field that has been totally renovated, and a lot more. We're very delighted to be having with us live here in the studio Dr. Ahmed Daoud Al-Hadedy. He's Assistant Professor for Construction and Project Manager. Good morning, Al-Hadedy.
Good morning, thank you.
Dr. Al-Hadedy.
Thank you.
Please, if you could shed more light over this forum and its importance, especially at the timing of a boom in mega projects that are carried out all over Egypt.
Sure. So the construction industry is one of the most significant industries contributing to social and economic situations and development of countries. And it provides the society with socio-economic projects and infrastructure facilities such as roads, hospitals, and schools. The Egyptian country is now experiencing a great boom in the construction sector, especially in developing the new communities all over Egypt. And we can see that the amount of investments has been tripled between 2014, 2015 to 2015, 2016. So the amount of investments has been increased from 3.7 billion Egyptian pounds to 11.7 Egyptian billion pounds. And the increase in the growth rate has increased from 9.7 to 11.2%. And this informs that a lot of investments has been introduced in the Egyptian construction sector for the construction of new cities and communities in Egypt. The Builders of Egypt Forum has been introduced in its 6th session this week, attracting about 25 Arab and African countries for investing in the new cities and infrastructure projects which are being executed nowadays in Egypt.
If you could please shed light over Egypt's very successful experience in the recent 7 years in the field, in particular of infrastructure.
Sure.
And construction in general. Of course, Egypt have totally been constructing building units, housing units, and different establishments all over the country, and even outside Egypt in less fortunate countries, and in some helping other countries in Iraq, for example,
Syria,
in Syria, and in Libya, and also in all over Africa.
Sure.
So if you'd like to also shed light on this very important.
So the construction industry is very important in Egypt for the let's say for the national or for the citizens itself, because like it contributes about 11% of the total GDP, and it employs about 5% of the total population. So we can see nowadays a lot of development in the establishment of new communities, such as the new administrative capital, El Galala city, New Alamein city, also the infrastructure facilities such as roads, bridges, and even the water supply and sanitation facilities has been expanded in Egypt. We can see nowadays the Hayya Karima presidential initiative, which led to an expansion in the sanitation services to cover 38% of the total population in rural areas instead of 11% in past times. And it's expected to cover all rural areas by the end of next year. Nowadays, the Hayya Karima initiative is serving about 58 million citizens in rural areas. So we can see a lot of expansion, not only in residential projects, but also in infrastructure facilities being executed nowadays in Egypt.
That's very good that you mentioned Hayat Karima or decent life that is taken according to directives of President Abdel Fattah Sisi and collaborated by too many different hands from all walks of life in Egypt.
Yeah.
By youth, by civil society, by businessmen who also are supporting the whole thing, and governmental officials also with their groups and everything, and ministries and everything. But just let us talk about decent life as a project, a mega project that is reconstructing Egypt and stretching out its hands to places in the country that nobody else before have stretched their hands for. How this experience is unique in its own right to you?
The success of Hayat Karima presidential initiative came because of the collaboration between the
private sector,
public sector, and CBOs, which is community-based organizations, and NGOs, which is non-governmental organizations, for investments reaching 700 billion Egyptian pounds. A lot of goals has been achieved, of sustainable development goals have been achieved through the past 2 years through the initiative taken by Hayat Karima for developing of rural areas. And we can see that Dr. Mustafa Madbouli have said that about 98.5% of citizens in Egypt are supplied by clean water, and only 1.5% of citizens are not supplied by water through the regular water supply network because they are settled in remote areas. However, they are supplied by other means. Also, the sanitation services have been developed in rural areas, covering about 38% of the total citizens in rural areas. We can see that Hayat Karima also offered suitable housing with a good standards for low-income and middle-income people in Egypt, such as Al Asmarat, Zerzara in Port Said, and a lot of like Bashair Al Khair in Alexandria. All of these communities are established for low and middle-income people, and even the government have offered easy installment plans over 30 years for them. So we can see a lot of efforts being executed for the development of the sustainable living of the citizens in Egypt.
And this in its own right is a great proof that the state is keen on supporting the private sector, and in particular the real estate sector.
Sure.
As we see, the presidential initiative Hayat Karima that is supporting strongly this particular idea of reconstructing the build-up of Egypt with the low-income bracket and the less fortunate and all that, and also renovating and building new places in the desert, like the new capital, for example, for a new republic, expanding the space for the population. I mean, this is a tremendous success.
Yeah, like nowadays the government is supporting the private sector by providing lands, and actually it makes an easy installment plans for the investor to like repay the amount of the land, either in financial capital or in a share given to the government in terms of commercial and residential units. And even the new investment law has made it easy for the investors to invest a lot of billions in Egypt, as you said, in establishing new communities in the new administrative capital, in Galala city, Al Alamein city. So we can see that the pace of the development in Egypt is going so fast.
Exactly. But how do you see the importance of the role of the private sector? We cannot deny that the private sector in any place, in any nation, it has a role to play.
Sure.
The businessmen also, they have a role to play. The capital of businessmen and their support, their logistical support, their ideas, I mean, expertise.
Sure.
Not only money, but also the experience of people is very important. So the private sector as a community, how do you assess it?
A successful plan is made by any government for relying on the private sector due to several reasons. Because the private sector has the financial capital for investing in such mega projects. also the private sector is like has a lot of technical and technical capabilities and calibers for executing these projects. Moreover, the private sector has an extensive experience in construction projects and establishing new communities. That's why the government is relying and depending mainly on the private sector for executing these projects due to these three main reasons.
So it's no doubt that the idea of reconstructing and renovating and housing units inside the informal settlements community has achieved great success and have eradicated a major radical problem of the people there. Of course, those buildings were declining and they were not fit for, to be inhabited generally. So if you'd like to focus or assess, give an assessment, a full assessment of the success of the idea of renovating the informal settlements with new housing units and the initiative in its own right, this initiative have been not working even before Decent Life. The renovation of informal settlements, and you have talked about Al Ismarat and other
Bashar El Khair in Alexandria, Zarzar and Port Said,
and Port Said and other places that were really the difference. If you look at the before and after, you would be amazed.
You can see the comparison between a slums. It's real a slums. Yes. And a new buildings,
a new makeover.
Yeah, and you can see like these buildings has a good living standards, which suits a citizen to live in suitable conditions nowadays in Egypt. Especially Al Asmarat, like you see the Al Asmarat 3, which was launched a few months ago, and you can see the new renovation happened to the whole place, from being in slums to a new place accommodating citizens to live a suitable life with a good standards.
The idea is that when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi came up with that initiative, he not only wanted to renovate or make over the face of Egypt, but most importantly, he wanted also to have to provide a healthy, decent life for the low-income brackets.
Achieving the goals of Egypt's Vision 2030.
2030, of course. Like in the sense of building them qualified hospitals, new schools that are qualified with bigger spaces, sports areas for them, and all these facilities that are supposed to be amongst the basic human rights for the people. Nobody else have thought of that before. People, when they think of establishing housing units, they just erect a building, a fit building for people to just settle in, and that's it.
His Excellency President Sisi and His Excellency Dr. Mabouli are mainly focusing not only on the financial side of the development, but they are mainly focusing on the triple bottom line of sustainability. They are looking on the economic side, they are looking on the environmental side, and they are looking on the social side. These are the three main pillars of sustainability, and they are constructing every single project nowadays, and they are putting these three pillars as the main foundations for these initiatives or projects. Even Haya Karima is addressing the three main pillars of sustainability, focusing mainly on the social aspect, on the economic aspect, and the environmental aspect, to enhance the life of citizens and boost the concept of decentralization and boost the concept of a sustainable living of the citizens.
Exactly. 25 new cities being established.
Yeah.
That's a good number.
Yeah, this is
nobody could ever believe that in only 7 years.
You know, the amount of the development carried nowadays in the era of His Excellency President Sisi, covering about 380 to 500,000 fidans, which represents about 50% of the development in Egypt, of the urban development carried out since the era of President Sadat. So you can imagine the new development nowadays carried in Egypt, and all the new cities, the 25 cities, are smart cities, mainly depending on technology and information communication technology. And these cities will accommodate about 14 million citizens and provide about 6.5 million job opportunities. So it's a tremendous project nowadays being carried in Egypt.
25 cities is quite a long,
Yeah.
it's a big story.
And
I
actually
mean, it
it's
would take much
boosting-
more long than 7 years.
Yeah, it's boosting the concept of decentralization. About 5 to 7% are living in the Delta
In a
region.
very little, small
and we have
area.
about 93 to 95% is empty.
Exactly.
So nowadays is constructing new communities outside of the Nile Delta to boost the concept of decentralization. Let's go out of the Delta and start to develop new remote areas. And actually, he's
Very modern thinking.
yeah, and you know that one of the projects he successfully executed is the new rail network and transportation networks in
course, of
Egypt,
course.
which is connecting every region in Egypt easily. The new rail network station will connect Cairo to
The
Aswan.
monorail?
The new rail network station, which will
So the normal railway.
yeah, will connect the fast new railway will connect Cairo to Aswan in about 1 hour or 2 hours, something like that. So actually, the new communities will boost the concept of decentralization and provide new suitable living for the citizens in Egypt.
And this all wouldn't have been real effective without the boom of mega projects that came in the field of infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, the network of bridges,
Yeah.
amazing network. Even in Japan, we don't have that hefty, successful amount of projects in very little time
Yeah.
of bridges that link from the Far East to the West and from North to South.
The
In
new
very little-
developed network of roads and bridges in Egypt and railway networks actually has another aspect we can look about it, which is the attracting a lot of investments in Egypt. Like one of the successful plans carried out in any country for development of new communities is establishing a very well operating or operated network of roads and bridges for attracting a lot of investments to be in input in Egypt for establishing new communities, such as the cities in Said in South Egypt, or new communities in the deserts, as you said, in like new administrative capital. How can we go over there without
Exactly.
a good network of roads or bridges or railway, the light rail transit, which will connect the new administrative capital till Cairo and Sokhna and these places.
And saving time also, because
Yes,
time is money.
Of course, of course.
When we talk about investment, if I save time, then I'm saving money at the same time.
Yeah, of course.
But we need to know the importance of the efforts of the state meeting the housing needs of the population and the growth in its own right. I mean, the government is focusing so much about meeting the needs of the citizens, about providing housing units, about providing facilities, because of course, of production.
Yeah.
If you satisfy the citizen, you meet their needs and you facilitate their living,
The growth rate.
the growth rate is going
Yeah.
to be over. If you like to elaborate over this.
Sure, like the growth rate in Egypt is increasing, and this may lead to degradation for the urban environment and the quality of life and traffic congestion and environmental pollution. And accordingly, the government has overlooked over that and started to plan new communities to accommodate the population growth. And as I said before, that the new communities are expected to accommodate at least 14 million citizens in it, which gives us shed a light on the importance of constructing these new communities to accommodate the fast pace of growth of the population in Egypt.
Actually, today we were mainly supposed to talk about the boom of real estate business and industry here in Egypt. It's important to improve the industry of real estate and empower it and support it. The Egyptian administration is focusing, giving great concern to that particular department or that particular element in Egypt. If you like to talk about it and why the Egyptian administration is caring so much about empowering real estate in Egypt business.
So, as I said, the the construction sector is one of the most important industries in Egypt, not only in Egypt, also in developing countries and developed countries. So,
like take an example, Dubai, for example.
Dubai, for example.
It's a country that have established its wealth over real estate.
Yeah, and following the role model of the developed countries and developing countries for enhancing their economy, Egypt is following the same track and is attracting a lot of investments, being an input in the establishment of the new communities. We can see a lot of Asian countries like China and so on are investing in towers and residential towers and commercial towers in the new administrative capital, which has a great future.
Where do you see Egypt going for 2030? To which is, I mean, Egypt is similar to the Dubai experience, to the, for example, the Chinese experience, the Malaysian experience.
We are
as
near
an
to
expert.
Dubai experience. Yeah, we are near to Dubai experience.
Why do you think? I mean, how do you assess?
You can see that
give that assessment.
Dubai has had a lot of remote areas and desert areas, which suddenly had a boom of construction. And similarly, we can see that in Egypt, like the new administrative capital was a piece of desert, and in like a day and night, and everything has changed completely. And we can see the iconic tower, which is the longest or highest tower in Africa and the second highest tower in the Middle East region after Burj Khalifa Tower in Dubai. We can see that the development is going so fast in Egypt. I think we are near to Dubai experience in the establishment of new communities and development of the construction sector.
We also need to talk about the I guess in a very short, because we only have 1 minute, if you would like to wrap up this experience of builders of Egypt in a few words that could be optimistic for the future or the vision of 2030.
I think nowadays Egypt is a gate of investment for the investors to invest in the establishment of new communities, and even in the infrastructure facilities can accommodate that. His Excellency Dr. Madbouli has announced that President Sisi will announce soon the launch of a new conference for the participants of Arab and African countries for the cooperation on the technical and investmental side of for the development of infrastructure projects all over the region, all over the African countries and the Arab countries. Moreover, I would like to shed the light that we had nowadays a lot of achievements being carried in the electric supply sector. And we have one of the largest solar parks all over the world, which is Bimban Solar Parks in Aswan, with a capacity of 1.8 gigawatts, accommodating about 41 solar plants. So this will help in the development of the construction sector, and even we will export electricity to other countries.
On that very encouraging note, we'd like to thank you, Dr. Ahmed Daoud Hadedy. You are Assistant Professor of Construction and Project Management. We'd like to thank you so much.
Thank you a lot.
You have a beautiful day.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And I guess we're going to go to a short break and we'll come to continue the breakfast show, so stay with us.